We must be talking about Benchmades. Stay tuned, guys. Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 23 January 2014. The week after SHOT Show 2014, a show at which Benchmade unveiled their new products for this year. And their new line features many, many knives with this feature, the axis lock. Why? Because it is the 15th anniversary of the axis lock. The knife that started it all, this one right here, the legendary Benchmade 710. This particular knife is circa 2010, featuring D2 tool steel in the blade and a handle of G10 with stainless steel liners. The original 710, I believe, had an aluminum handle, 154 cm steel, with G10 inlays. This knife has changed a little bit over the years. Some say for the better, some say not. I'll take some D2. And do I prefer the wearing like iron characteristics of G10 over anodized aluminum? That's a tough one. But I do love my 710. But what a lot of people really don't know is that just a couple years after the release of the 710 came this knife. Also designed by McHenry and Williams, also featuring the axis lock with a handle shape very reminiscent of the 710. A blade shape even reminiscent of the 710. Sans the recurve and the little bit of the difference in the shape of the swedge. The 707 has a name. It is the sequel. It is the sequel to the 710. Interesting though, the sequel retains its original 154 cm blade steel and its original hard anodized aluminum handle with G10 inserts. Very interesting, don't you think? Let's get the 710 out of here because we're going to talk about this knife, the 707 sequel tonight. I think it's kind of a cool knife, and it's a little bit obscure in Benchmade's product line. Let's talk a little bit about why I think that is. Well, let's talk about some specs so you can kind of put it where it belongs in your mind's eye as far as where it fits in Benchmade's product line. You know the construction, we've already talked about that. Blade length, 2.95 inches in this modified clip point blade of 154 cm with sort of that classic Benchmade light stone wash over satin finish. This knife, by the way, in front of the Apostle P camera, fresh off the Apostle P sharpening bench from my buddy Chris. Look at that edge. You gotta love how 154 cm does on the stones. Just wonderful. Almost as good as the D2 and its big brother. maybe the same. Anyhow, 2.95 inch blade, modified clip point, very reminiscent of a knife I think it compares with in Benchmade's lineup, the Mini Griptilian. The overall length 6.75 inches, handle length 3.80 inches. This is another one of those knives from Benchmade, like the 950 Rift, where the length of the handle is less than an inch longer than the length of the blade, which makes it very efficient in blade to handle ratio, doesn't it? The blade from this angle really almost dwarfs the handle. Some folks think that's good, some folks don't like it so much. We'll talk about why. The weight in this just barely under 3 inch sort of heavy-duty EDC knife is 2.6 ounces. Very respectable for such a strong little knife. So if it's about the same size as a mini grip, although it is thinner, why would we have a mini grip? Well, that's an interesting question, I think. The answer, the mini grip sells for what, $75 or $80, $70, $75. And this knife, with the same blade steel, almost the same blade, same mechanism, sells for almost twice that, about $140. I think as much as I like it, and I do like it, it's just a little pricey. Having said that, a 940 is what, $170, $175, so let's say $30 more than this. And it has the same construction material-wise. I guess the machining on the aluminum handle of the 940 is a little more intricate and a little more blade length and a little bit better blade steel. So I guess if you put it in frame against the 940, the pricing makes sense. Is the handle material and construction enough better than a mini grip Tillion to justify it being almost twice as expensive? I don't know. It is what it is. It is kind of surprising to me that the price of this knife has stayed so high, since the tooling must have been long ago paid for. But you know what? Value is value, regardless of cost to the manufacturer. And plenty of people must think the 707 sequel is worth the price of admission. Now let's talk about this handle for just a minute. Yes, it is very efficient in blade to handle ratio, which makes it, because of its length and because of its thickness, an extremely pocketable knife. Chris was kind enough to tell me, without me asking, hey, go ahead and EDC this thing for a couple days and let everybody know what you think. And what I think is, it is an extremely carryable knife. You don't notice it in the pocket. The weight and the thinness and the shortness, its lack of length, contribute to a knife that just kind of disappears in the pocket during the day. But, and there is a but, this handle length I find to be a little short. My pinky, if you look, and my hands, I wear a large glove, and I usually find a large glove to be just a little long in the finger, but fits my palm very well. So I've kind of got large palms and stubby fingers, I guess you could say. But I wear a large glove, and if I grip this knife in a saber grip, the pointy butt of the handle kind of hits the middle of my pinky, and my pinky really doesn't know what to do. Does it want to try to scrunch up on the handle, or does it want to hang off? It really, neither one is comfortable. So for my hands, the length of the sequel is just not quite there. What about in a hammer grip? Now, if I'm in a hammer grip, my pinky does make it on. That's much more comfortable. Although I've got this little space issue right here in the hammer grip, just because the size of the handle is kind of tiny as my fingers wrap around it. In the draw cut grip, not terrible, but again, my pinky kind of searching for where to be. And in a reverse grip, not bad. Not sure that you'd ever employ this knife in a reverse grip. A little short for an emergency tactical blade. And again, I am having some shortness issues with the handle. Because my thumb is kind of hanging off into space here, I feel like if I really thrust it into something hard, my hand might want to slip forward. Not a good thing. let's talk about some kind of intricate task EDC grips for a minute. Can I choke up on the knife? Yeah, I guess my finger can kind of catch this flat without going up onto the blade. What if I pinch grip it and that sort of side saber grip? Yep, I'm okay there. Can I come forward with the index finger to cut tape holding the box together? You bet. Not bad at all. I kind of like this little guy. I would really appreciate if it had just a little more handle length, though, I have to tell you. Let's talk about how it did at the sharpening bench. What I found was a nicely thinly ground Benchmade blade, which you don't always get. The Ricasso design, very much like Big Brother, although I will tell you, in this particular sequel, and it's an old story, isn't it? I did have to remove some material from this area because I had flaring and plunge grind issues, and I tried to take no more than I absolutely had to, but if you look close you can see my cutting edge just barely flaring out at the back. It's all sharp and it didn't cause me to recurve any or dull any area up in here, so it came out great, but it did require some modification. Great little value, I think, if you like a heavy-duty EDC blade and you have sort of smallish hands. And the construction, just amazing. I was able to set this up with a free-dropping blade and absolute zero side-to-side play, no up and down play. What a little bank vault. That might be the overriding characteristic of this knife, just the strength and solidity in such a small, lightweight package. Let's talk about the clip, though, shall we? It is my preferred finish, the Parkerized old school Benchmade clip finish. I don't know, maybe Chris, you can weigh in the comments. Is this clip original to the knife? And how old a knife is it? I think it's fairly new, maybe brand new. It'd be really cool to know that this Parkerized clip is actually coming on new sequels. That might make me buy one all by itself. This clip is, however, something that you feel in an irritating way. It's just, in my estimation, too big for the knife handle. The clip just dominates this knife handle. I mean, look how much less attractive it is on this side compared to this one. I think if somebody stuck on a Parkerized split arrow, oh, wouldn't that look so much better? The reason I roll that in is because this is so cool. I'll get back to the knife in a minute. Chris sent me 2 knives to sharpen. And along with the 2 knives to sharpen, he sent me his spare Parkerized split arrow clip that I can use however I want. What do you think? Nah, a little too small for that. He sent me that clip, and he sent me this cool little SOG Eclipse, little tiny sort of keyring lockback. Very well made, by the way, for a Chinese SOG. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate that a lot. What a cool little blade that is, huh? So back to the sequel. I certainly understand why guys buy this knife, but it's definitely for a smaller hand than mine. And that is, I guess, the number one complaint I hear about the sequel, is that it just, your hand sort of searches for it. But other than that, guys, I can find nothing to criticize in this knife. Everything on it's just executed to perfection. It's one of the nice things about buying a knife, that a model that's been around for a while, especially from Benchmade. You know, they just perfect things over the years. Kind of like cars, you know, you buy a new model, you're sort of rolling the dice. You buy a 710, you buy a 701 sequel, you buy a 940. They know what they're doing. You're going to get a great product. Can you tell it's kind of fun to play with, by the way? As most axis locks are. And I think the smaller the knife, the more I like the axis lock. It's kind of overkill on this little knife, but they handle so well. You know, they just do. Small Spydercos or small liner locks, lockbacks, they're just a little harder to deploy and release than this, and this is just a blast to play with. Great little knife. If you can justify the 140, you're gonna love it. Just thought you'd like to see this before I put it back in the mail for Chris. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and Chris's sequel are quite sharp. Have a good night, guys.